6?
Yes. 6 or 7.
I think it's episode 6 of Tea Time with Jen. As you can see, you have the whole family here. If you don't know, this is my husband. Why are you being so quiet?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Junior.
Because hi, Junior. I'm Jennifer, or Jen, and this is my daughter, Emily. So before we jump in, we are going to talk about what we are drinking. What tea are you drinking, husband?
Tea.
Which one? It's right there.
Bourbon tea.
The bourbon, but I don't remember the name of it.
Bourbon
We've
barrel?
talked about this one before.
It is called Bourbon Barrel Holiday Tea.
I was right.
Yeah,
I said
bourbon barrel. Which one do you
It's
have?
I have
Tay.
lavender chamomile.
Lavender chamomile. And why do you have lavender chamomile?
So, I don't really drink caffeine, and I drank regular coffee today, and so I'm balancing it out with
That's what
lavender.
she told me. I was like, why do you want sleepy time tea? And then I have, can you grab my container?
Sexy
It's
tea.
holiday spice tea. Holiday spice tea.
Holiday spice tea from Lifted Cup. I don't know. It was a gift, and I'm excited about it. It smells really good.
I like
I've
the
never had
bottle.
it.
Like,
It's really
that
hot
tree's
though.
really cute.
Can you set it down?
I'm scared of that.
Here, hold that.
Thank you.
Okay, so today's episode, we're gonna start with the three of us, and then Miss Emily is headed to her dad's for Christmas
So,
Eve and Christmas morning.
I might be popping out a little early.
Yes, so if she gets picked up while we're going, we're going to try to keep this a little bit shorter, but it's a good topic, so we will see. So overall, today's episode is about creating healthy mindsets. All of Tea Time with Jen has been about intentionally living and how we choose to intentionally live. And this is one of the big topics that I think has been really big for our family. And I know it's actually a kind of a big topic over the holidays. A lot of people have can get seasonal depression and things like that, be extra stressed out. And so Christmas Eve, Merry Christmas Eve, and Merry Christmas, because we won't be on here tomorrow. So we thought today would be a good day to try to go over this episode of Tea Time with Jen. So we have a pretty basic list of how we choose to create healthy mindsets. Depending on your generation is going to depend on how you approach that. Emily's generation is going to call it more of mental health. My parents' generation, that wasn't a thing. You didn't talk about it. Mine, it's kind of in between, and I think it's creating a healthy mindset, which is why I labeled it what we labeled it. So our 4 basic categories that come down to how we approach this, we all do, but we do them a little bit different. So we're going to deep dive after we go over the categories. So the first one is creating a playlist for life, basically. And that is really controlling what music, what movies, we're allowing into our brains and into our hearts. The next one. What's our next category, honey?
Speaking truth over it.
Speaking truth over lies. Yep.
And creating a safe space.
Yep. And then community. And so those are the main 4 categories. I am going to say that these 4 categories for us really come down to how we approach them is, again, I've said it in past videos, how we choose to live with intention, really choosing to live with intention, period. You have to know what you're moving towards. You have to know what type of life that you want to live. And a lot of that comes down into what your religious views are. And so we are going to touch on that for us, and how you approach it. You can approach it however you decide to, but these categories are good categories, and then how you decide to implement them would be based on whatever your personal beliefs are. So For us, it's pretty much centered around God and what the Bible says. And so for the first topic, well, since you might have to leave, what are some of your key out of those four? What are some of the big ones for you? Because you're a teenager.
Yeah.
You went through a pretty big illness in 2020.
I was
And-
sick for 10 months.
Yep.
And like a huge part of that was not only having that safe space and everything, being able to create it with things that you love and that stimulate your, like almost your mental health to be happier type of thing, because it was really hard. And
Yeah,
I went
'cause
through
you-
depression.
You had the sickness.
Yeah.
You had you lost a bunch of people
I have
that
like,
you
throughout
loved throughout that
I
year.
lost 5 people.
Yeah, and it
Not
was,
like little
and one
span.
of them was pretty traumatic. And so depression at that point, it's very common and
Yeah.
very expected.
That and like in teenage years too, it's very
You
like,
have hormones and
yeah. And
things
so
you're dealing
your
with.
hormones can be out of whack too. So choosing what you put into yourself is a huge thing. I would say controlling what music I listen to. I used to listen to a lot of like secular music. I used to listen to all kinds of different genres. I'm like, if you saw what music I listened to, like you like what you put into yourself, you get out and
Right.
everything. If you're gonna put depressing songs into yourself, you're gonna get depression out of it. If you're gonna put different heartbreak and different things into your body, you're gonna get that out.
That's kind of what when you were going through that, we had
Yeah.
a big conversation regarding that.
And
And we touched on
Yeah.
the fact, one of the ways I like to describe it is if you're going to be putting things into your head. I remember being a teenager, and when you had a workout playlist and you had a mixtape, because we had cassette tapes at the time.
mine was VHS that we had.
and-
She had
Not for
mixtapes,
music.
no. But I mean for like TV,
You had
for
iPods.
I had an iPod, I had an MP3 player.
MP3 player.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So, but you have
Yes.
we have playlists for working out, songs that motivate you for that. We had songs that motivated us after a breakup,
Yep.
songs that when we're in love and lovey-dovey songs that we like. And so I think with all aspects of life, there is that kind of playlist that you can create. And so that's something that we really talked about, because
Yeah.
you were watching
I was watching
the show Lucifer,
I was watching
Riverdale.
I was in a huge rebel against God phase.
Mm-hmm.
I really was. Like, I was pissed off at God. And it showed.
It did.
And it was one of those things, it was one of the hardest moments of my life and everything. I was watching things I shouldn't have. I was listening to things I shouldn't have. I was surrounding myself with social media stuff that I shouldn't have and everything, with people that were uplifting their bodies as gods and everything, uplifting their like different things as a god. And
Now,
everything.
what did you notice? Because you at first thought I was nuts when I really talked about, because you
I
had me,
did not believe you.
Grams, you had Sharon, you had multiple people in your
Yeah.
life telling you Philippians 4:8, and I'm
Yeah.
going to read it.
Which
Um,
I'm like, from going to Sunday school, from going to different things, like I know the basics of the verse.
right. So Philippians 4:8, I'm going to read it so I get it right, and I'm going to say verse 9 as well. It says, "Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble," in other variations of the verse, it's honest there. And then whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. And verse 9 says, "The things which you learned and received and heard and saw in me, these do, and the God of peace will be with you." And so that's kind of
I was
what
not doing those things.
what we really told her was, well, what are you putting in? Are you
Yeah.
focusing on good things? Are you focusing to see the silver linings?
I
Are you
was-
focusing on
Yeah.
putting love and grace and forgiveness?
that,
are
and I was like a
you-
major pessimist.
Right.
Like, I was angry about everything. I was sad about everything. I was depressed about everything. I wanted to, and I took it out on people around me too, and I'm not proud
Yep.
of that.
And
And one of the biggest things that helped me is surrounding myself with a community that loved me
Mhm.
and who poured into me the truth and everything, speaking the truth over the lies and everything, I was having a few panic attacks a day at one point, and that's part of the reason I got off of caffeine. And really, Mom would sit there with me and speak truth and everything over all the lies and everything, because I was majorly under
You have to
attack.
break down and you have to figure out what is actually the lie. So, for
It
example,
takes a lot of
I
digging
used to
deep.
say for a long time I was afraid of heights. I've realized I'm not afraid of heights. I'm afraid of falling. So you can approach how you talk yourself through things differently if you actually know
You have to dig deep and see
what
what
the
the
issue
root
is.
is.
And so with them, she was angry and she didn't understand. And that was what it came down to. And it was, well, what is it that you really believe? Because I have never been one, I was not forced to have certain religious views. And I don't want to force that on my daughter, but I want her to dig deep and critically think and go through the process and figure out what it is she believes. And at that point in time, she was extremely angry.
Yeah.
And so,
honestly, like, I was confused at like why God would let this happen, or like,
right.
I'm like, why would He let me get sick so much to where I was in a wheelchair, having fluctuating vision to where I could barely see, and was getting poked and prodded in every way, thinking I'm gonna die.
Right. And so what it came down to was she had to have that moment between her and God.
And I literally just screamed at Him.
And she just ate. And I said, like, that's what he's like. He talked to me like you're talking to, talk to him like you're talking to me, and let him know, because he gets it. He knows how you feel already. And
but He wants your complete honesty.
Right. And so she was able to have that breakthrough in her relationship with God. And then from there, you started changing what you were watching. You started changing what you were listening to. And tell us a little bit about how that changed your perspective. And because that was a few years ago, a couple of years ago. And
literally,
there's been a 180 change.
It's been almost a 3-year anniversary of me getting sick. And it's been 2 years since I've been able to walk again. And basically, a huge part, like, what really happened was I started, like, saying, okay, let's dive into what I do know and, like, start fresh. Like, I need to start, I've hit rock bottom, I need to start building up and letting Him be that foundation and everything. And I started digging more into the Bible and, like, wondering what different things meant and stuff, because I mean, I grew up in church all my life. I grew up going to church, I grew up around church community, but I never understood it really, I would say. Like, I kind of, like, I was at the point where it's like, yeah, Jesus came as a baby, He died for me and everything, but I didn't really believe it.
You can have head knowledge, but not heart knowledge.
Exactly. And so I started digging deep into that, and my friend Hope actually invited me to a youth group, and it's the one that I'm now a student leader at and on the worship team for.
So for the mindset though, so you started switching your music and movies.
Yeah, now I only listen to worship music unless like I'm out and about, like say at the mall, because I mean at the mall they're not really.
So you changed that. You stopped watching movies that had the dark and depression.
I mean, literally, when people that know me now, like, didn't know me before, like, I tell them about what I used to watch. I tell them about what I used to listen to, and they know what I watch now. Like, I watch Hallmark. Well, not anymore, but not as much anymore. But I watch, like, all the happy movies. I watch,
uplifting.
Yeah, I watch, like, I love Pride and Prejudice. I watch things that fuel me and my walk with God and everything, and fuel my healthy mindset. And I choose what I put into myself. And they're like, you used to do that?
Right.
Like, they're shook and everything, because, like, they don't recognize me anymore. Like, they wouldn't recognize me from that.
And it changes. And so changing that, just because you have limited time, I'm trying to keep wrapping you in. Sorry.
I know.
You have limited time before pickup. So she really changed what she listens to, what she watches, and that really instantly started changing her her mindset. It really, like, if you're listening to angry music, you're most likely going to feel angry, and if you're listening to upbeat music, you're going to want to move more. You know, if you're
Yep.
listening to relaxing music, you're going to want to go to sleep. Like, there is a lot to be said for that, and no matter if you're religious or not,
Yeah,
there's
music is a window into your soul. It fuels how you think. It fuels how your emotions are and everything. And it,
your
like,
energy level.
yeah, it
So
affects it all.
that was big for her. The community. So
Something.
I have been very open with Em about this, and it's the fact that you can have friends with all different walks of life. You can agree to disagree. You can love people even though you're on a different. You have different belief systems or political views or whatever. Like, being able to love across any of those lines is really, really important. And so that's something that I want to be very clear. That wasn't cut out. But it's when you're in the dark and when you're in the depressing side of things, it's who is your confidant?
Yeah.
Who is the person who is going to
Who's
build you
your
up?
core friend?
Who is going to direct you back,
Yeah.
right? And so having that community, and it could be a close friend, it could be family members, it could just be people that you don't even know,
Those
but
core
you're in
people
those
start to change.
environments, and you have
Yeah.
people who are continually directing you back. In our case, directing us back to, well, what does God say? It's not about what do you feel.
Yeah.
It's not about what are your wants and
Because
desires.
it literally
It's, well,
says in the
what
Bible
does God
that
say?
your emotions, like your thoughts, like they can turn on you and
Mhm.
everything. And so you're not relying on that, but relying on Him and leaning on Him and His Word.
So a couple other verses I'm going to say really fast before we move on to some of the other ones are in Proverbs and 12 verse 18. It talks about how thoughtless words can cut like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. And then in 2 Timothy, it says, I refuse to give in to my fears, for God did not give me a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And I think that comes right into the next topic, which is speaking truth over the lies. And I was going to switch over to Junior for a minute. Are you good with that? Do you have anything else big that you want to make sure you discuss before we
There was
switch
just
over?
the community thing. That's all.
Okay. How much more community do you have?
I just had a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
Like going back to the community. Something that really shifted for me once the healthy mindset started kicking in, and once I started speaking truth over everything, and once I started doing all that stuff, was who became those core people I leaned on. Like, I lost a lot of friends that were weighing me down and like encouraging me to do really bad things and everything. And I started going to church and I started building that community back up and everything. And surrounding myself with people that fuel that healthy mindset.
Well, I think that when you're going through things like that, and as you shift and adjust, it really goes through who are your
real
deep friends and who are
You find out
people
the
who are
people-
acquaintances who
Yeah. You find out the people who are going to stick with you through it all, and you find out the people who were the wolves in sheep's clothing.
So, anything else on there? Okay. So, Junior.
Yes.
You're being so sassy on here right now. I don't know what your deal is. Is it because you're wearing your glasses?
No.
Okay.
They're super
So,
glasses.
So, Junior, you have for years battled with depression.
Yes.
When we first got together, you battled it really strongly. I think that you still have some days, but overall, you have really turned a lot of corners when it comes into depression.
Yeah, the main thing about it was when you feel lost, you feel like it's helpless, and you feel like there's no hope. And part of being lost is not having something to believe in. And questioning on what you believe in, if it's right or wrong. And then when you do find the right thing and you find the right person, and like for me, the whole life changing thing was meeting my wife now, and then her. On top of that is also knowing that God really loved me and
For who
know
you are.
for who I am. It doesn't matter how I look, or it doesn't matter how I am, that I should just put it all to Him. The reason why I say that is because before I used to just think, like, whatever, it's no big deal, it's whatever, nobody cares. Nobody's gonna care about what I think, what I say, because, who cares? I'm just one single person in a corner that nobody really cares about. And the biggest thing is finding value for myself. And the biggest thing is valuing God as a big person in my life. And if I value God, then I can value myself. Uh, and with that came a lot of more love in my heart. And on top of that, I used to pray God for somebody that can love me back, aside from Him loving me. And I didn't say I'm not saying that my parents or my family didn't love me. I'm saying that regardless of all that love I had in my brain, I was like blindsided.
It's a different type of love.
Really struggled with speaking truth over the lies.
Yeah.
I think that's been, the other things are.
Yeah, it's just growing up, there's been a lot of things. And
bullies.
And whatnot. And, schools, everybody's like, oh, if you're not wearing this, you're not good enough.
All the fads.
Yeah, fads. And then on top of that, like when you're in school, you fall in love with lots of people. You got your crushes and you got all these things, but those crushes are always expecting people way up here.
Yeah.
But society nowadays puts a picture in people what the perfect person is, and you make yourself feel like you're not that person, so you always feel like you're down here.
That, like, you have to try to become that person to be loved
Inside I always felt like I don't have to change for anybody. If anybody wanted me, they're gonna love me for me. So I was never into the fads, but also deep down inside I felt like I wasn't enough for anything. And I struggled a lot through the years with depression because of this, because I felt like deep down inside I wasn't speaking truth over it. I just kept letting it eat me and consume me, and that got me to the down low. But eventually I just realized if I just talked more with God, my heart would brighten up and feel better. And I used to even pray, hey God, if you just lead me in the right direction, show me the way that you want me to be. And eventually in my heart I knew He was talking to me because I could feel it, and things started changing. Like I went from living to Fresno to living to over here with Rockland, ended up not even dating, and eventually finding the love of my life on a war game.
Of all things.
And I wasn't even looking, I was just playing a game. And one thing led to another. And I'm like, this is not going to work out. And then eventually, I said, okay, if this is really going to work out, God, first thing I got to do is find a job. Days later, I have a job. If this is really going to work out, I got to find a place to live. Days later, we had something lined up already. So literally anything I said, God's like, what's your next excuse? And in my head, it's like, there's no excuse.
Okay.
You have to do it. You have to go. This is the path I want you to do. So, bye, Emily.
We'll see you tomorrow. Merry Christmas Eve.
Merry Christmas Eve.
Okay. I hope this hasn't been blurry the whole time. I think it is blurry. Love you, kiddo.
Bye.
So, do you want to scoot over?
No.
Okay.
So, in reality, what really helped me is speaking truth over what's happening and in life and love and everything. But my biggest thing that really helped me is God, because He having a relationship or believing in something helped me fight harder
Right.
through my depression.
Well, it gave you a purpose and it gave you a truth, and it's hard to speak truth over lives if you don't know what the truth is.
Yeah, it gives, you know, in most, I feel like every time I talk to somebody else that is like a male friend or colleague, I feel like we always have to find something to challenge ourselves in, and that challenge creates a drive to succeed, a drive to want to provide for our partners.
Mm-hmm.
And that drive makes you challenge yourself instead of, I'm content with what I have. I'm content with this. And if you're just content all the time, you're just gonna be like, oh, I'm satisfied. I don't need anything else. But the whole progression of, hey, you know what? I'm gonna work really hard so that my wife can be at home, because if that's what she wants to do, then that's what she got to do. That's what I have to do to get her to that point.
Within reason.
Yeah, within reason. So
Because we're a team.
yeah, because we're a team. But the whole being positive attitude also helps negate the depression.
Mm-hmm.
Because depression, I almost felt like my doctor even almost wanted to put me in with depression pills and stuff like that, and I got to the point where I didn't need anything.
It's
So
I think it's been amazing. So over the years, there's been off and on. Like I got depressed when I was pregnant with Emily, and then I'm like 99% sure I had postpartum depression that was not diagnosed, and I had many times where I was down, but there was something in me. I think it's just because of what my parents, how they kind of raised me, but it's also just been ingrained in me, that you just go, you just do. One of my biggest things is not facing it and dealing with it and not putting myself in with the community or what I'm watching and listening to. The speaking truth over the lies has been something that I constantly have done. And so it was interesting that God kind of paired us up together, because
yeah,
that was one that, I've had areas where I did not do it well at all, but on other aspects, I did pretty good with that. And so when we got together, and you have to get down to the root on what is the issue. And anytime it comes to a mindset, whether you're calling it mental health or depression or how you're viewing things or whatever, right? Your mindset comes back to, well, why are you living this way? What are you doing? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And whatever that mindset is, then you get to decide, okay, so how am I going to get there? And what are the actual obstacles? And what is my actual issue here? And sometimes that's hard. It's not the issue we thought it was. We don't have a problem with what we thought we had a problem with. It may not be the problem of how I look. It may be the problem of I'm really scared of rejection, or something along those lines. But the immediate one is, well, this is what I think the issue is, right? And you have to dive deeper and really figure out what it is that you're really having an issue with, how you kind of respond to it, and then where you can go from there. And that was one that anytime either of us have an issue, it's, well, are we speaking truth over the situation? Where is the actual, and he does that sometimes because I get anxious or nervous over certain things, especially being a mom of a teenager, and that's an area where I struggle with speaking truth over. It's like, well, she could be on the side of the road somewhere, and he's like, yeah, probably not. And so he brings me back down. But and then on the other side, it's reminding, having community and building relationship um, with people who are going to remind you of what God sees in you, and the fact that we're all created in the image of God. We're all very different. We're all different, holding a mirror up to a different aspect of who He is, and none of us are perfect. Absolutely none of us are perfect. We're all going to screw up. And the fact that He can't hold me on too high of a pedestal and I can't hold Him on high of a pedestal, because guess what? We both screw up. And that's because we're human and we have issues. And recognizing that, to me, recognizing the fact that I can't do it all, recognizing the fact that I can't be perfect, that takes a lot of pressure off. And realizing that I have a God big enough who loves me for who I am, and that I need to strive every day to be more like Him. And that helps my mindset big time, because I can go, okay, so it's not like I have to be 100% perfect to be loved. And that is very freeing. And that, I think that's why this was such a great topic for me for around Christmas, is because as a mom, I can't even fathom, like we talked about on our Christmas thing, I can't even fathom sending my daughter to die for the sins of people I've never met, and God sent His Son, and that's what we celebrate on Christmas. I don't think it happened in December, but that's what we celebrate at Christmas, is the fact that God loved us so much that He sent His Son to die for us, to remove that barrier, to the price for the cost of sin is death.
Yeah.
And He died for us so that way we could go to heaven and that we can be forgiven. And so for that, I try. I'm not perfect, but I try. And I think that when you change that mindset, it helps with how you approach it. And we've talked a little bit in the past about creating a safe place, creating a safe environment that is open and understanding. And I think that's good for building relationship.
Not just that, it also helps, like, for instance, Emily have a safe space. Not saying that if she needs it or not, but having that additional.
I think every human being needs a safe place.
I mean, yeah, but it's not saying that this is her only safe space, but
right.
Having multiple safe places helps, just so that anybody
right
can.
Creating something that where it's okay if you have a bad day.
Yeah.
You have a bad day, you're having a bad day, you are feeling attacked. Okay, well, let's sit down, let's talk about it, let's give it some extra space, let's give some extra understanding, and to be able to move forward. There's so many people I've talked to who don't have somebody who's willing to sit and understand and listen. And if somebody's not doing that for you, make sure that you're doing that for them. Make sure that you're opening that door, but also looking at your environment. And it's hard to build that process. It's hard to be intentional with creating that space, building that community that's going to keep directing you right back to where you're supposed to go, the path that you want to be on, which for us, that path is drawing closer to God and doing what He says. And that may not be the path for everybody. I do find that path has brought me the most peace, and it has brought the most healing. And I have no problem with being weak, because I have a God who's all powerful.
Yeah.
And that was, I think,
And it's not about being weak. Um it's about if you it's about you knowing that you're human and you need help sometimes.
yeah,
Even I sometimes feel weak, and all I know is that if I feel weak, I know that God is there with me and He'll bring me up. And He'll find a way to bring me up, whether it's through Emily coming over and just giving me a hug, or my wife noticing and coming in and giving me a hug. And it's the things like the biggest things is also like, nowadays everybody in the world's so busy on going. Like, if you set yourself up to where you're a certain way, even when you're at work, people notice. People notice your ways of doing things. And if you change, like, they question it, like, what's going on, they say, like, hey, this is not like you. Is everything okay? And that right there will tell you, it's like, hey, that's
readjust my
yeah,
approach and my
yeah,
mindset.
exactly. Not just because God does things in weird ways, and He channels through everybody,
Hmm.
regardless if you believe in Him or not. There's something that just happens.
He can use anybody.
He can use anybody just to wake you up. It's like, hey, check your
So
stuff.
one of the things we do if our house is getting a little bit
Too
tense,
yeah, too much, too much, or
if somebody's on edge or whatever, we will put worship music on the background, and I say worship music, but it's just Christian music, and
yeah,
we use iHeartRadio, and we put on the Casting Crowns channel, and it's not all Casting Crowns, but it's that style of music.
yeah.
And whether you're actually listening to it or not, you're listening. And
It's that thing behind your head that's
it's conscious.
subconscious that's like, oh, I'm gonna tweak myself to what's going on in the environment, and the environment's uplifting. So let me tweak myself to get to that point.
The environment's reminding you that you're loved. The environment's reminding you that you're here for a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
It
And the other thing is, like she says, what you listen to. When I was depressed, I used to listen to a lot of rock, metal music, and that usually goes in a really dark mode.
I used to listen to Zumba
Or,
music to
I mean,
to go,
yeah,
and it's like half the time I didn't understand the words that were in it, but man, I'll tell you what, it gets you dancing, and probably not the most appropriate all the time.
no, no, yeah.
So you
But
don't even realize what you're doing until somebody like calls you out on it, and
but it's
in
crazy.
love.
It's
I don't think you should call out rudely. I think that
no,
you can call out in love.
yeah, it's crazy once you really actually start listening to what you were listening to. You're like, I was listening to that before.
Oh my gosh, you go back to. I mean, I was born in '82. He was born in '87, and so the music of the '80s and the '90s. Man, there was some inappropriate stuff back then. I was amazed looking back at some of the stuff we
I
would
mean,
listen to.
those beats were good.
But the words not so much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my parents, we grew up very different on music, and my
Mm.
parents really focused in on, really, my mom was extra strong, and my dad as well. But my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and that's why I bring her up a lot more. My dad worked a lot to provide, so that way she could be home, and
Yeah.
so
Sometimes I
the
tell her
lessons
that
are all
I'm
from
jealous.
both of them.
I'm jealous of what she used to listen to.
I grew up on Christian music. We went to concerts all the time, and they were Christian concerts. And it was Jeff Moore in the distance,
Yeah.
and Sierra, and Kathy Tricoli, and Margaret Becker. And I mean, there were so many for him. There are so many good ones that we listened to that had songs that hit me in the spot where I was, that made me feel understood and seen, but then at the same time helped direct me and channel me the direction that I should be going. And again, not perfect. I feel like a bird's in the house with how loud that is. If you can hear the bird, that's what it feels like. A bird came in. It must be like right outside the door. Um, so that's, I really encourage you, we really encourage you to, if you're struggling with your mindset, and it doesn't matter if it's depression, if it doesn't matter if it's lack of motivation, if it is how you're viewing yourself, whatever it is, if you need a mindset shift, then we challenge you to look at one, what are you putting in? What is it that you are putting into your mind and your heart? What are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you reading? And what are you doing? Right? And then from there, start speaking truth over lies. And from that is making sure you really understand again what it is that you need to be speaking.
The other thing is
what
also
lies you need to be speaking truth over.
value yourself more than what you do right now. You definitely are worth more than you think, and put it in your brain that
because God values you that much more.
Yeah.
Even more.
Yes.
Work on creating a safe space, a safe environment, not just for you, but for others around you. And build a community that has like-mindedness. And again, that doesn't mean you shut out everything else. I think it's very important that whatever your mindset is, whatever your beliefs are, whatever all those things are, that you are able to have people from all walks of life involved. And but where are you getting your core direction from? And I think it is key that you have that line up and match. And then I think the other big thing is to make sure you're out there giving back and that you're talking about it. Do you know, as a single mom for a long time, I struggled with perspective big time. I definitely had the feeling of scarcity. I wanted to keep everything just in case I needed it. It's struggled with that, and feeling like you don't have enough at any point in time. And with that, when I helped at homeless shelters or with a local thing we have called Gathering In, it puts it into perspective of how much I actually had compared to others who have it even worse. And so I think when you give it back and you're doing something not selfishly, you're doing something for somebody else, that's going to make a huge difference in your mindset as well, because it shifts your perspective. And I think that's really, really key and really important. And making sure that when you say something, if you blow it, apologize. My knee jerk is to kind of be a brat sometimes, and I will very bluntly say things, and he'll have to be like, did you mean to say it that way? Because that was kind of mean and rude. And so
yeah, especially when you just need to say, hey, I took it this way, or is that really what you meant? Because I took it like a little bit off the charts, or do you need to rephrase it a little bit?
And apologize for it, and then try to do better the next time, and understand that that's kind of where you are. And that comes into that, the thoughtless words cut like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. And I think that is really important, is that you look at the heart of which things are said, and you're the one who chooses whether you're offended by something or not. And try to keep in mind your audience and who's around and kind of where they are. Sometimes I have to remember, maybe he's having a rougher day, and I need to be more gentle with what I'm saying and not be as blunt, because he's not in my brain with the 50,000 browsers. He's in his one browser brain. And I can't expect him to understand where my mind is, and I can't expect to understand where his mind
On
is.
top of that is, I think guys have a different way of mentality versus women, because I I focused on one thing, but her brain could be focused on 50 million things
All at once.
all at once, or I can still be on the same conversation, but she has 50 browsers, so she could be nitpicking from the 50 browsers, and I'm like, wait, what? We're still working on one
That
thing.
didn't make sense.
That didn't make sense. I'm still working on this one. Where are you at now? So the biggest thing is also communicating, like, hey, I'm still on this.
Yep.
Can we backtrack and go back to this, and then we get back to that?
Yep.
So, yeah.
So we hope we're gonna wrap this up. It's 45 minutes. We let the last one go a little long with my mom, but we really hope that you guys are having a really good holiday season. We hope that you are surrounded by loved ones and that you are making memories. If you are by yourself or if you are struggling and you are having a hard time with the mindset, figure out what it is, speak truth over it, know that you are valued, know that you are loved. And I really hope that as this year closes and a new one begins, that you take the time to really focus on where your mindset is, because you have the choice on where your mindset goes. And sometimes you need assistance with that. I'm not saying that that's not the case, because sometimes it is the fact that you need assistance from a professional with that. And so I don't want anybody to think I don't think that. I absolutely do think sometimes it calls for that. But there's a lot of times that we have to take responsibility for what's going on in our heads, what we're giving input. If we give our car catch up, it's not going to run. It's the wrong fuel, right? We need to give it gasoline. So make sure you're giving your body and your mind and your heart what it needs to keep moving forward. We will be back on our next Tea Time with Jen. It will just be my husband and I for that one, talking about some of what our plans are for 2023. We wrapped up 2022. I did a little recap video this week on that.
More drugs.
Which is sugar.
No,
Never know what this man's going to say live. So...
Or two.
So we hope that you will stick around and join us. I hope that you've been enjoying the Tea Time with Jens and that it's given you some food for thought. But we love you guys. We thank you for watching. And we hope that you have a really blessed holiday. What are you doing over there? We'll talk to you later.
I see double. Bye. Junior out.